يا أيها الناس قد جاءكم برهان من ربكم وأنزلنا إليكم نورا مبينا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. O Allah, open my heart, make my task easy for me, and remove the knots from my tongue, so that they may understand my speech. The following video is based on the PowerPoint slides I have taught with my new Muslim students, and are targeted towards complete beginners. So either students who have very little recognition of the letters or students who have no recognition of the Arabic letters at all. So in the following few lessons, we will look at each letter of the Arabic alphabet, give its letter name, as well as its phonetic sound. And we will also look at the articulation points, which in Arabic we call the Makhraj of each letter. The Arabic letters cannot be sounded without one of the three short vowels on them. So on each letter we will also sound them with each of the three vowels. So the three vowels, which in Arabic we call harakat, fatha, which is a slanted line above the letter, which has a sound, kasra, which has a e sound, which is beneath the letter, and a dhamma, which has this like a comma, a symbol above the letter. So with each letter we will sound them with fatha, a sound, kasra, e sound, dhamma, u sound, at the same time as learning the letter name, the phonetic sound, and the articulation point of each letter. And we will also look at the letters which, when they have a sukoon. A sukoon is a letter which is free from one of the short vowels, so it doesn't have a short vowels. And the symbol that it can be seen is like a half circle above the letter. So this letter name is Laam, and the phonetic sound is La. The Laam is a letter which can be thick in the name of Allah when it's preceded by the vowel fatha or dhamma, which we will move on to on the next slide. Everywhere else, the Laam is always a thin letter. So in general, the Laam is a thin letter. It's articulated from the near edges of the tongue, touching the upper gum. So it's important that the near edges of the tongue are used and not just the tip of the tongue. This is what differentiates the English L to the Arabic Lam. The English L only uses the tip area of the tongue with the upper gum, whereas the Arabic Lam uses the near edges of the tongue. So it feels as if you're spreading your tongue out when you're pronouncing the Lam, L. So it's very important that we're using the correct articulation point for the Arabic Lam, and it's not using the same part of the tongue that the English L uses. So in general, the Lam is a thin letter, so you can see that the tongue is not concaved and there's no echo in the mouth, and there's no concaving, there's no narrowing in the throat. So when I say la, lu, li, it should all be with thinness. It shouldn't be la, la, lu, li. So lam in general is a thin letter, and when it's pronounced with a sukoon, the key is to stay on the articulation point to complete the characteristics. Otherwise, it would sound like you vibrated the sound. It would sound like ala, ala. So the key is to stay on the articulation points al, until the sound naturally finishes. And also remember that you have to spread out the tongue, the front area of the tongue, so that you're using the edges, the near edges of the tongue, as well as the tip. Al, not L. So be careful that you're in the right articulation point for the Arabic Lam. So only in the name of Allah, the Lam is pronounced thickly when it's preceded by a fatha or by a dhamma. So in the examples here, we can see that dhukira, the name of Allah, is preceded by the vowel fatha. So the letter before it has a fatha, and in fattaqullaha, the letter before it has a dhamma. So this empty letter, we ignore this empty letter because it's jumped over. So the next letter with a vowel before the name of Allah is a qaf, because the waw is empty and we're looking for a vowel letter. So the vowel letter is qaf, which has a dhamma on it. So therefore, this lam in the name of Allah will be pronounced with thickness, and the articulation point will still be the same. So we're pronouncing it from the near edges of the tongue with the upper gum area. And you can see here now that the tongue has now become concaved. To give it thickness, we have an echo in the mouth, strong echo sound, and there's also a narrowing in the throat area. So when lam is thick, we have to make sure that all these mechanisms are in place. So we say dhukirallahu, dhukirallah, not dhukirallah, dhukirallahu, and fattaqullaha, fattaqullah. So law. This lam has to be pronounced with thickness, because it's preceded by a fatha here and preceded by a dhamma here. If it was preceded by a kasra, then it's always pronounced thin. So for example, in bismillahi, it's preceded by the meem, which has a kasra, so then it's thin. So in general, the lam is a thin letter. The exception is in the name of Allah, when it's preceded by a fatha or a dhamma, then the lam becomes thick. In order to pronounce the Arabic lam correctly, we need to understand the contact area of the Arabic lam, and we need to understand what happens to it when it's in the state of sukoon. So on the tongue, the blue area is the area which is touching the upper part of the mouth, and you can see that the coverage of the teeth it's using both the central incisors, it's using both lateral incisors, it's using your canines, and it's using your first premolars. So the area that it covers is a wide area, compared to the English L, which would only use the area of the upper two incisors, L. So if I say late or always, then I'm only using this area here, just behind the upper incisors, whereas the Arabic lam, it has a wide coverage. So it's covering all of these teeth, so you need to make sure that you're not using just the tip, and you're using the entire edges of the tongue. Another important mechanism that needs to be in place when pronouncing lam with a sukoon is that we keep the tongue in the articulation point, because the sound has to escape left and right, because we've blocked the exit by holding the tip and the front area of the tongue on the upper gum. When I say al, I've blocked the exit of sound, so the sound has to escape left and right out of the mouth. So until that sound escapes, we shouldn't take the tongue away from the gum area. Al. And a very common mistake is to give qalqala to the lam and vibrate the sound ala. So be careful that you understand what's happening when it's in the state of sukoon, and you understand which part of the tongue we're using, the near sides of the tongue. You need to understand that it has a wide makhraj, it has a wide articulation point which covers all of these teeth, and you need to understand that when it's in the state of sukoon, the sound has to escape left and right out of the mouth while the tongue remains in its articulation point. So these are very important factors when pronouncing the lam correctly. So this letter name is Meem, and the phonetic sound is ma. And it's similar to the English M. So the articulation point is between the two lips. The lips are closed here. So you need to understand what happens to the Meem when it's with a vowel and when it's with a sukoon. So when it's with a vowel, we're starting off with the lips closed and then we're opening. So we're separating the two parts of articulation. We're separating the two parts, the two lips. So I would say ma, mu, mi. And you can see that the Meem is a thin letter, so there is no thickening of the tongue, there's no concaving of the tongue, there's no echo sound, and there's no narrowing in the throat. So it shouldn't be ma, mu, mi, it should be ma, me, mu, mi. So the Meem is a thin letter. And when it's pronounced with a sukoon, then we're going in the opposite direction. So we're saying we're going from the lips open to closing. And the key is that the lips have to remain closed so that the sound can escape from the nasal cavity. So you can see here in this picture that the nasal cavity, which is this pink area above the nose, above the throat, the roof of the mouth here, is now open because this is where the sound of Meem will exit from. So the sound is blocked at the lips because the lips must remain closed when we pronounce the Meem with a sukoon, and the sound has to escape from the nasal cavity, and again, if I open my lips too quickly, then I will do qalqala, which is the incorrect characteristic of Meems. The Meem does not have a vibration sound. So the key is to keep the lips closed until the sound has fully exited from the nasal cavity. So this letter name is Noon, and the phonetic sound is Na, and again it's similar to the English N. So the articulation point is the tip of the tongue with the upper gum. And again you can see that the nasal cavity is open, which means that this is where the sound has to escape from. And the Noon is a thin letter, so there's no concaving of the tongue, there's no echo sound in the mouth, and there's no narrowing in the throat. So it's when it's pronounced with one of the three vowels, Na, Nu, Ni. It shouldn't be No. So make sure not, when I say No, there's no thickening of the tongue, there's no thickness in the articulation point. So Na, Nu, Ni. And again, when it's pronounced with a sukoon, the key is to stay on the makhraj, stay on the articulation point for the sound to escape from the nasal cavity. So the sound is blocked at the tip, so you have to keep the tip of your tongue in the upper gum area until the sound has escaped from the nasal cavity. And if I move it away too quickly, ana, then I've done qalqala, which is the incorrect sound, the incorrect characteristic of the Noon. The Noon does not have qalqala, so be careful that we don't take the letter away from its articulation point too quickly. So a letter with a sukoon always has to have slightly more timing than a letter with a vowel. The reason being because the characteristics have to be clear and audible, and they have to finish naturally before you move on to the next letter in the word. So an. So what is a ghunna? A ghunna is something that you will hear very frequently in Tajweed terms and in the recitation of the Quran. So the ghunna is a permanent characteristic of the letters Noon and Meem. So the letters Noon and Meem always have the characteristic of ghunna. And the ghunna is a nasalization sound which is pronounced in the nasal cavity. So if I pronounced the letters Meem and Noon by holding by pinching my nostrils closed and then pronounce it and then I can feel that there's the sound has been blocked in my nasal cavity because I've closed my nostrils. So this is how I know that the Noon and the Meem is pronounced from the nasal cavity. In the same way, the letters, the English letters N and M. So if I say N, M, N, M, by closing my nostrils again, I can hear that the sound has gone into the nasal cavity. So the ghunna is a special characteristic which is special for the letters Noon and Meem, and it's pronounced in the nasal cavity, and it's a very frequent sound in Quranic recitation, which is why it's important to know how to pronounce it correctly. In certain situations, it's held for 2 counts. Otherwise, it's just it's when we pronounce the nun and the meme, then the ghunna, it has a ghunna sound which escapes from the sound of the nun and meme will have to escape from the nasal cavity, but it won't be held for 2 counts in all situations. So only in certain situations will it be held for 2 counts. So for example, if I say nahnu on this nun, nahnu, which means we, I haven't held the nun, haven't held the ghunna for 2 counts. But if I say, so we have the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Surah Al-Fath. If I say Muhammadur Rasulullah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, then the meme in the middle has to be held for 2 counts. Muhammadun. And if I say the word thumma, inna, and if I say, for example, the word insha'Allah, if it comes in the Quran, insha'Allah. So this noon in insha has a ghunna off, which I'm holding for two counts. So the ghunna is a sound which is very frequent in Quranic recitation, and it's special for the letters noon and meme, and it's only held in certain situations for 2 counts, which we would learn later on in your Tajweed journey. And the sound of the ghunna has to escape from the nasal cavity. So these are the main points that you would need to understand at this point. So in today's lesson, we've covered the letters Laam and Noon. So the articulation point of Laam and Noon was the gum area. So it's this ridge which is found just behind the central incisors at the top on the roof, on the upper palate of the mouth. So this gum area is the area where the Laam and the Noon were touching. So there are 3 letters out of the Arabic alphabet which all use this area. So we have the Laam, which we covered today, which has to be touching this area, Al, and we have the Noon, which also touches this area, and previously we had the Ra, which also uses the gum area. So the difference between the 3 letters is that the Laam touches the gum area, but it's using the near edges of the tongue, so it's not just using the tip. So it's the near edges of the tongue touching the upper gum, and the Noon is the tip of the tongue, so it's just the green area touching the upper gum, and the Ra was the tip and the part of the upper surface of the tongue touching the upper gum. So this is where the Arabic R, Ra should be touching. So L, N, R, all 3 letters should be touching this gum area. So if I pronounce all 3 of them with a sukoon on, L, N, R, so they should all be touching this gum area here. So these 3 letters are all touching the same gum area. So just a point to bear in mind, especially when students find it difficult in pronouncing the letter Ra, because they're used to pronouncing the English R, which is rolled back onto the tongue. So the English R would be rolled back here, further down on the hard palate. So make sure if you're touching the same place as Noon and Laam, L, N, R. So all 3 letters touching the same place. So to summarize today's lesson, we've covered 3 letters, Laam, Meem and Noon. In general, the Laam is a thin letter. The Meem and the Noon are always thin letters. The Meem and the Noon are letters which have the permanent characteristic of Ghunna. So the sound of the Meem and the Noon have to escape from the nasal cavity. We can see what the Laam looks like when it's written at the beginning and in the middle of a word. And when it's written at the end, you will see the full shape of the Laam. The same for the Meem. When it's written at the beginning and in the middle, it's written just with the top part of the Meem, and at the end it will have its tail. And the Noon, it's written on a stalk just with a dot, and when it's in the middle it's also written just with the dot, and when it's written at the end of the word it will have its final shape. So be mindful of what the letters look like when they're in the middle and at the beginning of words. So la, lu, li, ma, mu, mi, na, nu, ni. And when it's pronounced with a sukoon, al, am, an. And only in the name of Allah, when this lam is preceded by a dhamma or a fatha, will the lam be given, will be made thick. So Rasulullahi, Inna Allah. And the sound that you need is similar to the sound that you have in the English word law. So if I say law, it's the same Inna Allah, the same lam law that you need here. So Rasulullah, Inna Allah. So the same law here, and remember to be mindful that you're using the correct articulation points of the lam. So you're spreading the front part of your tongue, and you're using the near edges of the tongue with the upper gum. Inna Allah Rasulullahi. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
وأن أتلو القرآن فمن اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فقل إنما أنا من المنذرين